Hi, my name is Christy Jones with Professional Training Solutions, and in this session I'm going to show you how to create a simple pivot table in Microsoft Excel. I'm currently using Excel 2010, but this would be applicable in 2007, 2010, and 2013 as well. Notice on my screen I have pulled up the data that I would like to create my pivot table on, and notice within this data I have different information. I have which region for all of my sales for my Outlander Spices company. I have what quarter things were sold. I have the actual product, and I have the actual dollar of the sales amount. Notice as I scroll down, I have various regions: Central, East, North, South, and West, and I also have 4 quarters and different products. So as a sales manager, we may want to evaluate this information so that we can see how well we did by region, by quarter, for the various products. This is something that you could have thousands of records in your pivot table and be able to quickly display these results. To achieve this, I will click on any cell within my current pivot table range of data. Then I will go up to my ribbon at the top and click on the Insert tab. The very first button available on the Insert tab is the Pivot Table. When I click on Pivot Table, you'll notice that a dialog box displays that wants to verify my range of data, and it is indeed coming from my spreadsheet called Raw Data, and I want to analyze cells A5 through D105. I can either have it create a new worksheet, or if I had an existing worksheet already named in my workbook, I could place it there. I will click on OK to create a new worksheet. Notice what Excel now did is down at the bottom where I have my worksheet names. I still have my data on my Raw Data tab, but I now have a new sheet called Sheet 1, and this is where I'll actually tell it how I want my pivot table to be configured. Over on the right hand side of my screen where it says Pivot Table Field List, this is a navigation pane that displays, and this is where you will select which fields you want and how you want them to be displayed, whether in columns or rows or to be filters. And then you can also tell it what values you would like to have it either sum or find the average or the maximum, minimum, any of the different functions that you might want to perform. I'm going to tell it that I would like to see this by region, so I'm going to click on the region field over here on the navigation pane and drag it down here into the row labels area at the bottom. Notice that quickly now shows me all my unique regions. I now would like to see it by quarter, so I'm going to click on quarter and drag that down to my column labels, and notice that my quarters are now displayed across the top. The next field is how are you going to calculate? Do you want to sum up your information? Do you want to count, average, min? So I'm going to click on my sales field, drag it down into the values area of the navigation pane, and notice that by default it sums all my information. So very quickly, this could have allowed me to be on a spreadsheet with thousands of records and quickly create a pivot table so that it would summarize by column, by row, for the unique values, how well I did. After analyzing this, I may decide that not only do I want to see by maybe region and quarter, I'd also like to see what products we sold within each region. So at any time I can take product, drag it down to the row labels area, and I'm going to place it below region so that way it will show me by region, by product. And just to let you know, this is just a snapshot of your data, so you cannot mess up the data. The data is still on your raw data sheet. This is just letting you manipulate how you want to display that data. So don't be afraid to practice or experiment or move fields around. One of my favorite features is the ability to take any field and create a filter on that field. Let's say that my sales manager has decided that now they would like to have a separate report for each individual region. If I now take the region field over here on my navigation pane and drag it up to the Report Filter section of my navigation pane, you'll notice that that now appears at the top of the pivot table. It currently shows all regions, but every one of these fields can be filtered. So if I wanted to click on this drop down, I could simply choose the region I wanted, click on OK, and I would only see that region. I now know that I have filtered by that region because the filter icon displays to the right of the actual field. If I click on it again and choose all, I can select all my regions again. Notice I can also filter by the rows. So click on the drop down arrow to the right of the row labels, and I could have also gone down and deselected the select all and simply chosen the products or things that I wanted to see. So you can filter by any of the columns or rows or report filter options. There again, to clear the filter, I click on the icon of the filter and choose Clear Filter. One of my favorite features, though, is the ability to have Excel create separate spreadsheets based on the field that you have actually placed in the Report Filter section. To do that, I would simply click on the Options tab, and then over to the far left, you'll see that I have an Options icon that I can click on the drop-down arrow for, and I can choose Show Report Filter Pages. If that had been grayed out, that would be because I had no fields currently in the Report Filter section. Once I select it, any fields that I have moved into that section will be displayed, and the only one I have is Report. Watch when I click on OK at the bottom of my screen. It now creates a new spreadsheet per region that I could then print out and give to each of my region managers. And this could have been many, many more variables than what I had. I only had 5 different regions, but as many different options as I had, it would have created a new spreadsheet for each one. To get back to the original pivot table sheet, I simply click on Sheet 1 and I'm back to where I started. Let's go through some of the other settings then that are available on this Pivot Tables tool ribbon. So the first thing I did was create options and show report filter pages. But let's say I wanted to click on any of these numbers and change how they were formatted. I could simply click on field settings, and this is where I could change whether I'm summing, counting, averaging, max, min. I can even do calculated fields from this feature or change the number format. Once I do that and click on OK, I can change how that field is configured. I can also sort by any of the different options. So if I wanted to click here and change my sort order, wherever I am, I can change the sort order of how I'm displaying that field. One of my favorite new features, though, with Excel 2010 is that I can choose to insert slicers. A slicer is the same thing as manually filtering. It's just a quicker way and easier for people that may not be quite as savvy in Excel. So let's say I would like to be able to filter by region, by quarter, and by product. Once I click on OK, it now provides me with a different way to select each of these options. So if I would like to only choose certain regions, I can click, hold my mouse down, and select multiple regions. Or click on any region, hold down my control key, and then I could skip and pick which regions I wanted. Notice as I did that, it actually filtered as I went. So I could have chosen multiple quarters, or I could clear those filters. If I simply click on the clear filter on each of these, they will go away. If I click back on my original pivot table, I will also get my pivot table field navigation list back again. Notice if I go back up to the Options tab, we talked about Insert Slicer. You would use the refresh option anytime your data would be updated. Let's say in this raw data sheet, something changed, and now I had also maybe a different product. Maybe I also sold cinnamon for one of my quarters. If you notice when I go back to my sheet, I don't see cinnamon displayed here. But if I now go back up to my Options tab and choose that I would like to refresh all my data, cinnamon is now one of the choices, and since I only had cinnamon for third quarter, that's the only place that number is displayed. I can change my data source at any time, so if I had added additional fields or rows either to the end of the current range or above the current range, I might have to reselect my data. If you insert within the original range, it'll automatically update. Notice I can also move the pivot table to a different area. So instead of having it on sheet 1, I can move it. And I can also change how I'm summarizing by selecting this option, sum, count, average, min, max, product, or change how I'm showing my values, or create calculated fields. Another really easy feature is once you've created your pivot table, if you would like a pivot table chart, you can simply click on the pivot table chart option, select your chart type, click on OK, and you would now have that chart displayed. Click back on the pivot table and notice you're back in your pivot table. That concludes my tutorial for pivot tables for part 1. We will explore them further in the next section.